Hello, it's a rather croaky Anthony Chadwick from the Webinar Vet, welcoming you to our VETchat podcast today. Apologies for those. I'm hopefully not going to talk too much. We've got Rosie Booth with us today, who's the Director of Sustainability for Europe at Covetrus, one of our wholesalers in the UK, but based all over Europe as well. Rosie has a career in sustainability, now working in the veterinary sector, and has been a big help and an inspiration for me in the things that I'm trying to do around sustainability as well. So it's so good to have you on the call today, Rosie, and apologise in advance for this croaky voice I've got.
Thanks, Anthony. It's lovely to be here.
Rosie, just before we sort of crack on, I should say that today I was very keen to record it today because it is International E-Waste Day. And we're going to be talking about all sorts of elements of waste and issues around sustainability. But maybe before we do, obviously not everybody will know who you are. So tell us the path that you've taken to come into this weird and wonderful world of veterinary.
Yes, no problem. So I'm a vet originally by background, and I've spent most of a bit of time in practice and then most of my career working in industry, as it were, for a number of different veterinary pharmaceutical companies, a feed company, and now for the last few years I've worked for Covetrus Animal Health in roles across Europe. So I don't just do sustainability, and I wasn't brought into Covetrus to work on sustainability, but after I'd been with the business for matter of months, I sort of identified that we're having quite a lot of requests and interests from customers, particularly, so big veterinary customers across Europe, in topics relating to sustainability, waste management, etc. And there wasn't really anyone coordinating our ability to respond. And there were quite a lot of sort of small sustainability or green initiatives happening across the business, but again, no coordination across the countries. So I sort of put my hand up and said, well, if I can do a bit of training, I'm happy to sort of pick up the mantle here. It was already an interest of mine. So I did a course at CISL, the Cambridge Institute for Sustainability Leadership, I think it's called. I did a course there, a remote learning course with them, picked up quite a lot of knowledge and busted a few myths of things that I did or didn't believe beforehand. And then after that, so my role has sort of expanded such that I now manage all things to do with sustainability and increasingly the wider ESG topic across Europe. I mean, one thing that I'm sure many listeners are aware of is that the degree of regulation around sustainability and reporting and so on across Europe is going up and up all the time, which is no bad thing as far as I'm concerned. It gives us plenty of momentum and reasons to do things differently. So my role is, quite heavily about getting us ready for the coming regulatory frameworks in Europe, but also ensuring that what we're doing at a local and European level in this area is structured, has some purpose to it, and is moving us in the right direction. I don't think we're ever going to be a leader in the sort of global space here. There are other companies who are, have much greater resources and much better equipped to go faster than we are, but we're definitely moving in the right direction.
I think it's hard for wholesalers because the margins are very tight, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
So there isn't necessarily huge sums of money sloshing around to allow you to do, massive things, but actually you are this huge connector between practices and suppliers, and actually the logistics of getting things to practice in a sustainable way. We can make big wins there. If we say to practices, listen, only order twice or 3 times a week rather than 5 times a week, that can have a massive input on petrol and diesel savings, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the things that I have, started to do some work on, and it really varies. I mean, there are some countries, for example, in the Netherlands, where having a delivery twice a week is the norm. That's just what they've always done. But of course, what that means in terms of the emissions associated with those deliveries is that they're massively lower than a country like the UK or Belgium, where typically most practices are looking at 4 or 5 days a week deliveries. So, there's a degree of convenience and planning and so on to be taken into account, but it's a relatively significant part of any practice's carbon footprint is the emissions associated with deliveries. So it's a way in which, if a practice wants to go down this route, it's a significant way that they can take a step in the right direction, and it's something that I'm pretty sure all of the wholesalers would support wholeheartedly.
And I know, my wholesaler, when I had my practice in Liverpool, was Dunlops, which of course is part of Covetrus now, isn't it? So it is getting practices, I think, from a costing perspective. If you've got lots of drugs sitting on the shelf, or if you're not ordering correctly, stock control can obviously be massively expensive for a practice if they're stocking too much. If they're not stocking enough, they let clients down, they go to other places. So it's getting the right amount, which is quite an art form, isn't it? I think I used to spend quite a lot of time on it to get it right, but I'd hear stories from the guys at Dunlops of people saying, well, if we waste 20, 50,000 pound a year, it's not the end of the world. But of course, there's a carbon cost to drugs being made and then never used, isn't there, as well?
Absolutely, yeah. The entire supply chain from end to end, any efficiencies that we can create and bake in, undoubtedly has a good impact on the total footprint. I mean, most of the footprint from carbon footprint from end to end in the chain is in the manufacture of the products
Yeah.
initially, and the associated packaging around them. So yeah, absolutely, waste is something we all want to avoid. But yeah, having the right product in the right time, at the right time, in the right place, is obviously what everybody needs in order to be able to serve clients and run their businesses. And wholesalers are, yeah, an important part of that chain, and quite a lot of work has been done over the years in helping practices with their inventory management and so on. And I think overall it probably has got better over time.
Yeah.
That's for sure. But yeah, there's definitely still improvements that can be made at every level.
I was reading, I think it was Mark Carney's book on values, which was talking about a lot of the reporting that will come in.
Mhm.
Obviously, just to let small practices know, it's not an implication for them because it's only really big business like Covetrus, like some of
Exactly.
the big
Mhm.
groups. But I think this will be good in actually, because a lot of accounting is just about pounds, shillings, and pence, or euros or dollars. But actually, we don't take into account the environment within our accounting systems. And I think this is what this is trying to bring in. I know you've been doing quite a lot of work on this. So, what's your thoughts on, maybe let us know, when is that coming in officially,
Mhm.
or is it already in officially? And what are the sort of compliance issues are you seeing that the bigger groups are fairly compliant already, or where are we up to in this journey?
Mhm. So it depends where you are to some extent. In the UK, when big companies file their financial reports, for the last few years, they've had to give some basic information on the emissions associated with running their business.
Yeah.
But it's just the very basics. It's nothing terribly in depth. But then for all of Europe, excluding the UK, but I'll come back to that. It's not quite as simple as that. For all of the EU, by the end of 2027, for businesses of our size, so it's a little bit different from really massive businesses, they're already in scope, but by 2027 all businesses of our size roughly have got to report very, very in-depth sustainability matters within their whenever they publish their financial results. So it's become an annual requirement, and for that, emissions are just one factor. So yes, emissions are there, but there's a huge amount of other information we'll have to provide. So water, waste, any targets that have been set, initiatives, processes, policies, how all topics related to sustainability and wider ESG topics are managed. And for a lot of businesses, that's a big change to the way they've operated. They've operated before. So yeah, a lot more information gathering, a lot more really governance of all the good things that most businesses have been doing, putting some structure around it, and finalizing that within your report. So that's coming along, and as I was saying, although that doesn't include the UK, the way that the scoping is worked out, if you're a lot of companies like Covetrus and many others, if you're an amalgamation of lots of other businesses, you'll find the ownership structures mean that more is pulled in than you think. So for us, it does include the UK. We do have to report for the UK under CSRD, and in time we'll even have to report for other businesses such as the ones we own in the US and Australia and so on. We'll all get pulled in. So I think I would say that it is a good thing. The whole world is gradually being pulled into being more open about its what businesses are doing in terms of their emissions and what they're doing to reduce them.
You've been a big support for those people who don't know Webinar Vet. We've run an event called the Veterinary Green Discussion Forum since 2022, which is bringing everybody together, or as many as we can from the veterinary profession together to talk about sustainability issues, but more importantly, to act upon them. Mm-hmm. And we're going to talk about the e-waste initiative that we're running at the moment, this being e-waste day, International e-waste day. But tell us a little bit about what your thoughts have been and why you decided to get involved in the Veterinary Green Discussion Forum in the first place.
Yes, of course. So I've been along as a guest and as a speaker the second time around for the last 2 years. And yeah, I think it's a fantastic event from the point of view of having the chance to really speak to and get to know other people who are working within sustainability roles broadly, and allied roles, but very specific to the veterinary profession. And because of the role I have, I get invites to quite a lot of webinars and in-person events that are sustainability related. But I might find myself sitting along in a lecture theatre with 100 people, sitting alongside somebody who is part of a team of 50 sustainability experts working within some massive financial institution. It is very hard to relate to their day-to-day world. So that's why the Veterinary Green Discussion Forum is so great, because it is very veterinary focused. It really is about our sector, what initiatives are underway, what people at all stages, from the youngest assistant in a practice to somebody working for a very large pet food conglomerate, what they're thinking, what direction they think we should be heading in this space. So yeah, I think there's the formal learning from what you're taught, as it were, what the speakers cover, but then there's the opportunity to talk to and learn from each other's informally as well. That's what's so beneficial.
I think this is, for me, the big part of it, in that obviously we do have some speakers like yourself last year, or last June should I say, but also that time of discussion amongst peers is probably, in my view, more important than the talks, because there are a lot of conferences where we're talked at for a day and there's not a lot of interaction with the audience, and so I think having the Veterinary Green Discussion Forum where everybody's a participant is there's more teaching and more learning from each other, isn't there?
Yeah, no, I'd agree entirely. I think that's so valuable, and being relatively. I can't think how many were there last time, but it feels quite intimate. It feels like you can you can get to know and talk to everybody else there. If that's what you want. And I think this year as well there were more participants from other European countries as well. So again, great to see what's happening in other countries. And I'm lucky in my role in that I do get to see that. But I think if you're working purely in one country, it's really nice to have that exposure to some wider views and interests.
It was really interesting. We did a small survey with Tanya from Kinetic, and it was very much, UK, France, Germany, and America, that the UK kind of seems to be leading on this, in that the vets seem to be more concerned about it. It's very close between UK, France, and Germany, with US a little bit behind. But there is an interest, and presumably you see this at Covetrus. As you said at the beginning, people, you developed the role because people were asking questions to the wholesalers that Covetrus was presumably struggling to answer at that point.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it comes particularly. The sort of requests that come to me particularly are often from the large groups who've got a footprint across multiple countries. So what they might be looking for example, is information relating to the footprint associated with deliveries to their clinics across 4 or 5 different countries. And that's that's something that needs quite a lot of coordination and digging internally to get the right information to them. And they are, they want that for their own purposes, for their own reporting and so on. But it's not always at that level. Often it can actually be, just one or two very enthusiastic people in a practice wanting to know more about, where's this product sourced from, how far has it come,
Yeah.
or I'm looking for some sort of a what we call consumables, the sort of disposable item. I'm looking for a reusable version of that. How can we find one of those? So we do get requests like that as well. So yeah, it's everything from something absolutely tiny to something massive that requires a huge amount of data coordination and digging within the business. So yeah, at all levels.
Yeah, brilliant. Rosie, one of the things about the Veterinary Green Discussion Forum is very much we've followed that kind of rationale of the young Christian workers, which was very much see, discern, and act. And so it's been really good working with you on this e-waste initiative that I wanted to talk about to finish the podcast. I obviously did, like you, a certificate with Cambridge University around circular economy. And the two things that it really, I mean, there were a lot of take homes, but obviously can't concentrate on everything. And for me, it was very much around e waste, both virtual e waste. So emails that you send to people that will never be opened, stored in big data centers that take up a lot of electricity. And then obviously the physical e waste. We've all got, and I could probably see a bit in this office at the moment, computers, phones that we're not using anymore that could be potentially repurposed and then resold, or if they're beyond help, recycled and some of the metals taken from that. And so I obviously then went to last September. I was away this year, so I couldn't go to the Resource Waste Management Conference exhibition down at the NEC in Birmingham. And Royal Mint were there, and then I got chatting with Royal Mint, potentially for them to pick up the computers. And at that point, I came to you and said, Rosie, would you be interested in getting involved in this? And of course, Covetrus did it, with open arms. So we've done our first little pilot, haven't we, in September? Perhaps you'd like to just talk through how that's gone, and if you want to add anything to that background.
Yeah. Yes, of course. Yes. So yes, obviously, it was you that approached us about it, and we had a bit of an internal think about how we could make this work, and came to the conclusion that it was feasible. So after a bit of background work, setting us up as a supplier to the Royal Mint, which is quite complicated because they're a big organisation, we're a big organisation, a bit complicated. We decided to we go for it and set up an internal process such that, and then we just ran it for September. This September just gone as a sort of initial trial. Let's see how this goes, whereby anybody who's a Covetrus customer could gather up any e-waste within their practice within certain parameters that we provided and stick it in one of the tote boxes that we supply products in anyway, or another box of their choice. And as long as they let us know there was going to be some e-waste to collect, our drivers would pick it up just in the normal course of coming toing and froing and bringing deliveries, bring it back to our main warehouse in Dumfries, where it be gathered up and then sent off to the Royal Mint at the end of the month. So we've literally just done that, and as I say, being a pilot and not knowing exactly what sort of response we were going to get, we're a little bit cautious, and we communicated sort of primarily with Covetrus customers directly, and we're still collating the exact amounts that have come back. But we had 14 individual practices send us some amount of e-waste, where I'm a bit cautious at the moment. I don't exactly know the volumes. I'm sort of waiting for that information. So that's now all back in Dumfries, and we will be soon sending it down to the Royal Mint, who will extract any precious metals from, or should be plenty, hopefully, extract any precious rare earth metals from that, and whatever the value is of those metals that they extract, that's going to be a charitable donation to the Lancashire Wildlife Trust, who Webinar Vet have had a relationship with. I doubt it'll be a huge amount this first time round, because it's to say it's just a pilot study, but yeah, it's gone smoothly. It went well, no problems encountered. Uptake, I don't know whether we're pleased or disappointed really, because as I say, it was just a pilot, let's just see if this works,
Yeah.
and so on. And we would very much like to repeat it again in the future. It would be great if we could get one or both of the other UK distributors involved, because I think it will have a much bigger impact if we can talk more widely, into the professions, about it. But yeah, that's where we are so far. Pleased to have done it, and yeah, let's hope we can go bigger and better on another occasion.
Yeah, watch this space.
Absolutely.
And of course, I think this is a real opportunity, I think, for wholesalers in that reverse logistics, at the end of a life veterinary practice of a product, that those products are taken back. And of course, again, with my Dunlop's memories, tote boxes, very much part of that circular economy as well. Circularity,
Mm.
generally globally is going down because we're wanting
Mhm.
to use more and more plastic. So I think it's a really great opportunity, and having somebody like yourself who's so passionate about it to be looking at how we can collect even more waste. Obviously, there's a lot of clinical waste as well, but this is some of the stuff that maybe we forget about and can, gather dust, can't it, in practices
Mm.
where and in your own personal homes as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think this is a toe in the water. Very open to exploring other initiatives as long as it can be, made to work, without completely changing the business model. You have to take baby steps.
Yeah.
Then yeah, we're very open to that.
And I feel, with all waste, that it's the responsibility, that sort of old linear model of create, use, throw away,
Mm. Hmm.
has to change. As I say, the figures that I saw with my course was 7% global circularity within the global economy. That is such a small number. We'd love, within a veterinary context, because I think a similar number was created by Zoe Halfacre as well in a paper I saw from her a few years ago. Love to get that doubled. And I think the responsibility lies with one, the manufacturers, but two, also, I think, vets, we have to have some responsibility for it, passing some of that on to consumers and clients. But actually, you are in a position to help sort of make that happen. But I think companies creating stuff like for example, my cat is on pouched cat food that
Mm.
goes back to Pets at Home who recycle
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
They've obviously got presumably some sort of connections with the food companies as well. I've seen some of the food companies doing some initiatives on that. So it feels like more is happening in this space. But
Yeah.
it's been really great working on the e-waste thing with you. But I think there's even more that wholesalers can do, isn't there?
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. I think it feels like a slow process at the moment, but absolutely, I think we can get there, and I think we need, uh, I'd almost campaign for, for people in practices to, keep on hassling your suppliers, keep on hassling
Yeah.
people, businesses like Covetrus, other distributors, and the manufacturers as well. I know that packaging waste is something that really bothers an awful lot of people in clinical practice. So keep on hassling the people further up the chain. So say what you want. If it's sometimes it's recycling and circularity. Sometimes it's reduced volumes of
Yeah.
packaging that can be properly and easily recycled, without too much hassle. Keep on banging that drum, because larger businesses, unless they really believe the demand is there, and they could lose out if they don't respond to that demand, there's not much incentive for them to change.
Yeah, and it's a really good point. I was speaking to somebody the other week, and they said, they had green Q-tips that they put in stock, and then none of the vets were using it because they were a bit more expensive. So there are choices we have to make across the board. I live by the beach, and I don't want to see Q-tips at the beach,
No.
but they get there eventually if we're still
Mm-hmm.
creating and producing as many. So again, Rosie, thank you so much for your commitment and the effort you've put in, across the board, but particularly around this e-waste thing. That's been lovely to see some stuff coming back. And of
Yeah.
course, this isn't just a one-off thing. It's something that we should hopefully continue as well. So I'm looking forward to carrying on working with you on that project.
Yeah, no, likewise. I mean, we wouldn't have got started if you hadn't given us the idea and the connection with the Royal Mint. So no, it's a good initiative so far. But as I say, just early days. We need to keep working together and building on it.
Rosie, thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate your time. You are inspirational to me. It's so important. Sometimes you can feel like you're a bit on your own, a sole voice. And so it's really nice to be able to listen to you and learn, but also to be inspired by the things that you're doing at Covetrus. So thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Anthony. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
And thanks everyone for listening. Hopefully we will see you on a podcast or a webinar very soon. Take care. Bye.